Welcome to the Unmet Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Welcome back to the Unmet Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. As you know, my name is Mary Baker, and I'm here to give you the education, the tools, and the motivation to identify just what's in your way today and what you can do about it. Because remember, empowerment comes from doing. It means truly identifying what's really going on, what's causing the issues, and most importantly, the positive changes you need to make that can increase your self-confidence, enhance your relationships, and help you take charge of your life. All right, so welcome back. We're in a new month, which means we are in a new arena. And as promised, I want to get into defining what needs are this month. So before we do that, I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for your wonderful, wonderful feedback. It feels so good to know that this is helping you. And you were specific in ways that it was helping you. Some folks said it was great to have the worksheets so that they could commit to actually doing the work rather than just listening to the podcast and tucking it away. Others of you loved the idea of community. I love community too, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. So, as promised, I will be rolling out the Facebook group this month, and you will know when that is ready to roll. Okay, so let's get started. I want to take this episode and talk about defining needs. Now, the rest of the month, we're also going to get into what happens when our needs aren't met, how do we know they're not being met, how they weren't met, and also how do we take charge of identifying our own needs and getting them met. So let's first define needs, because I think there's a lot of confusion over what are needs versus wants or desires. You know, needs are things that we need, right? They are things that we cannot do without. And as we get into today, it's going to be easier for us to accept, you know, what are some basic needs, like being able to have shelter, clothing, food, and what have you. I personally think there's more confusion about our emotional and psychological needs. So we will definitely be getting down into that this month. So there are all kinds of needs, and they all matter, and I want to make that clear. And they are not wants. They are needs that we have to have met in order to feel okay, in order to feel grounded, safe, and secure. And each need and each category of needs serves a different purpose. I think some people will try to substitute one for the other, and it just doesn't end well. So we're going to talk about defining needs, and then the rest of the month we're going to talk about, okay, what got messed up for you perhaps, and how do you re-own them? How do you get them met in healthy ways? And then, of course, the ramifications of unmet needs. So many of you may be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's been around since 1943. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist and did a whole bunch of other stuff. And he is one of the big names in psychology. And of course, some of his stuff is very controversial, but he built a whole theory around this. And just for transparency, Maslow is someone I have studied for years, and I do keep coming back to him. I think he really had some important things to say. So Maslow's pyramid, and you can go online and type it in, and there's plenty of information on it. I will also provide some links for you in the show notes. So Maslow's basic pyramid starts at the bottom, because that's a foundational piece, and he started with physiological needs. In other words, our need for air, our need for food, drink, warmth, sleep, and shelter. And these, at the bottom of the hierarchy, are called deficiency needs. he says we need them because when they're deficient, it is very, very unpleasant for us. And then towards the top of the hierarchy, there are more growth needs. But if you think about it, if you don't have these needs met, like if someone's house burned down, God forbid, or there was a natural catastrophe and they lost their home, the only things they probably will be focusing on are how to get shelter and how to get warm clothes and food and water and such. They're not worried about other stuff at the moment. So if you can think about those moments in your life where there was a crisis, you weren't really worried about other needs at the moment. So these need to be met. His belief was they have to be met before we can move on to any other levels. So all the levels in the hierarchy build from the bottom up. So the next one is safety needs. And that means, physiological needs are important, but they also relate to our well-being. And physical safety, which means I'm protected from violence, I'm also protected from bad things happening to me. Maybe if I'm a child, my parents are there to protect me and help me feel safe. Maybe it's about protection from disease, but also it can be protection from, financial crisis. So if someone has a job, in other words, or a bank account or some kind of other financial freedom, they're going to feel more secure in having this safety need met. Now, of course, for kids, if they're in school and they're being bullied or a teacher is verbally harassing them or something, then they're not feeling safe, even though they are being provided with the need for a safe structure of school. Any of you that have ever experienced any trauma know just what I'm talking about and how important safety needs are. Okay, so the next one is social belonging or belongingness. There's been so much said about and researched about this lately. In fact, they're finding that belongingness is one of the big keys to longevity, so that's pretty interesting. But really just about belongingness and love, friendships, family connections, really close, emotionally intimate relationships with others. Belonging to groups, churches, clubs, online groups, the gym, the neighborhood group, a group from college. There's so many ways we can think about this, but it's really important. And we know that we were made for a relationship, and relationship is so important. And that those who don't feel like they belong are really hurting. And also, conversely, belongingness provides a safe place for us to grow. So it makes sense that Maslow put it here on his hierarchy. Very important need. The next level up are esteem needs, and that means all the healthy mirroring that we're supposed to get from others to let us know that we are good people, we're smart, we're funny, we're talented, and that we're okay. It also where our abilities lie, so we may test that out for ourselves, either on the playground or in the workplace. And then having self-respect. So yes, it starts outside in some regards growing up, but then it also needs to become between us and ourselves. Now later down the road, Maslow altered his hierarchy and added a few things, and one of them under esteem is cognitive needs. And that means that we are always learning. That need for knowledge, that need to satisfy our curiosity, our desire to explore, our desire to find meaning, and to educate ourselves. And so feeding that can be really important, and that can be done in a million different ways. Maybe you love the academic environment. Maybe you just love to learn on your own. Maybe you love to grab new hobbies or new interests to learn about something, or just to sit and talk in conversation with someone. That the cognitive needs are very important. We also know that with aging, that continuing to grow keeps our brain a lot healthier. The other one underneath of that he added later were the aesthetic needs. And that just means maybe walking in some beautiful nature or walking through a botanical garden or an art gallery or something that you find really beautiful. That's important. And so aesthetic needs are not wants, they're needs, that we need that. Then he goes on up to self-actualization. And self-actualization pretty much means all my lower needs are met on the hierarchy, and I'm ready to move on and look for something greater. That's the reason a lot of people give for, okay, why is the person who has all their needs met? They have security, they have friends, they have money, they've accomplished a lot of great things, and yet they're still striving for something else. And Maslow believed that we continue to keep reaching for more, that humans are meant to grow, that we're usually not just satiated with lower needs, that once we get them met, we turn outward towards the world and say, okay, how can I give back because I've been so blessed? How can I look at a higher purpose, my life purpose perhaps, and how do I help others and become part of the greater good? So those are the basic stages of healthy needs. And Maslow believed that just like a plant that you set a little to the right of the window, it's going to crane itself to reach for the light. It wants to grow. And Maslow believed that we are all like that. So I want to also go back through the levels a little bit more and say, okay, first of all, I want you to kind of think about where do you feel you are today and why? Where are you on the hierarchy? And why does that make sense? And you might be straddling, one area or the other, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be stuck in safety needs per se. You may toggle back and forth depending on the week. So for this episode, I do want to hone in a little bit more on the emotional and psychological needs, or as Maslow called them, the growth needs. And I just want to reaffirm that, like the belongingness needs, we need that healthy mirroring. We need to feel loved. We need to feel needed. We really need to be seen for who we are as an individual. And I've talked about this before. For what you think, feel, need, choose, believe, that's individually about you and that's okay. You also need to feel like you matter, that you belong somewhere, and that you have acceptance, unconditional love. Not that people don't set boundaries with you, but the love is not conditional. That is so important. Guys, that's why support groups, if they're done right, work. That's what therapy tries to do in the therapy hour, hopefully, where you don't feel judged. There's acceptance and there's love and there's consistency to help you feel safe. That's why 12-step groups work really well, because I think they meet a lot of these needs on Maslow's hierarchy, and they do it well, which is why 12-step keeps working and working well for people. When you think about it, these are the needs that those folks entering those rooms did not get at the family dinner table. I personally don't think that we will do this work until we are safe, until there's a place where we feel accepted and held accountable, but not judged for where we are in the process. That is so important. I've never watched anyone do the work until they at least had one or two safe people around them. So think about that for yourself and try to be nice to yourself. If you haven't taken a lot of big steps, there might be a reason. Now with self-esteem, as I said earlier, a lot of that can be between us and ourselves. It's about self-efficacy. Like that's the belief that I can do something. Like I have a talent or I'm confident enough to be able to achieve something. It means I own it. Owning all your thoughts, feelings, needs, choices, behaviors. You'll hear me say that a million times. It means believing in yourself. It means having the courage to forge ahead and do things you're afraid to do. And it's about practicing self-love and acceptance. And I say practicing because you got to do it every day. So those are really important, along with internal self-based needs, I call them. And that's working on trusting yourself and feeling like you have what's called an internal locus of control, which means on average, you feel like you can make choices in your life and you're not a victim. External locus, which means we look out there and we're a victim and it's all because of them and I can't because of him and all that stuff. And then finally, when we get to self-actualizing, I think there's a big focus on self-integrity, which again goes back to self-esteem. But it's about us feeling like we are very, very clear about our values and we are living them out. And it really matters to us. And so no one can take your integrity away, right? You have to give it away piece by piece. And so that's a big thing. And then we also want to build up others. You know, empowered people want to build others up so that they feel empowered as well. So it's really a wonderful thing. And it's about mentoring others. It's about paying it forward, you know, creating some good in the world. It's just a wonderful thing to aspire to, I think. You know, again, Maslow believed that people are basically good and that wounded people wounded other people, right? Hurt people hurt people. Because those people are terrified of being vulnerable and having needs. So there's no way that they can have empathy for the needs of others. In fact, they hate themselves, and that's what makes them want to hurt others. I don't think people go out and hurt others because they love themselves so much. What we see in others is what we see in ourselves first, which is why there's not a really big line between suicide and homicide, because the value of human life is the value of human life. And if we can't value our own, we certainly can't value that of the other. So I want to take a moment and flesh out some other needs. Now, if you go online and type in psychological and emotional needs, you'll find a lot of resources, which is great. And I really encourage you to go do that. And so the reason why I want to actually kind of read some of these off to you is because you'd be amazed at how many of us struggle to even know that we need some of these things. And we'll get into this month kind of how that disowning happens. But either way, I just want to throw them out to you just to, you know, see what triggers for you. And just to affirm that these matter. These aren't wants. You know, wants are things you can do without. Needs are not. And that's the big difference. So, healthy mirroring I mentioned. Acceptance, we need to feel that we are okay. Even if we screwed up, that we're still okay and we're lovable. We need laughter and enjoyment. We need to belong, to feel safe. We need to be recognized when we really achieved something that was so hard or we did something well. We need to feel proud of ourselves, and we need others to feel proud of us at times. We need caring. We need to feel empowered and strong and courageous. We need to feel rested at times. We need peace, and we need quiet at moments. We need to feel cherished, needed. We need to be leaned on and to be able to lean upon others when we need to. We need to feel secure, to grow, to learn. We need the sense of freedom. We need understanding, and we need space. We need to feel heard. We need relationship. We need involvement in something bigger than ourselves. We need meaning. And we need to feel meaningful. We need to have cooperation and learn how to work with others. We need relaxation. We need choices. And we need independence. And especially when we're scared, we really need to be believed in. We need to feel respected, and we need to have respect for others, especially those in authority, be it our parents and our boss and our elders, but we also need to respect our siblings and our friends and our partner. We need to know that we make sense. And boy, do we need to know that what we feel and need makes sense. We need to be creative in whatever way that means. There are a million different ways to be creative. We need a purpose. We need to stretch and test ourselves. We need faith in something. We need faith in ourselves. And we need hope. This is just the tip of the iceberg of things we need. I had such a hard time narrowing down that list for you. My hope is that you take this list and you run with it and you add more and you add your own. Like I didn't even put play on there, and I think Brene Brown talks about the interesting research where one common denominator of serial killers was they weren't allowed to play when they were kids. That's pretty fascinating. As a former play therapist, I can tell you play is very healing on many, many deep levels, unconscious levels that we're not even aware of. So think for a moment about how you're feeling talking about needs. Is it vulnerable? Is it scary? Is it frustrating? Have you already been thinking about this? This first episode is really just to create awareness and to make a statement that these are needs, not wants. And we're going to talk this month about why they're so foundational and so important, and why basically I'm starting out month 2 talking about needs because they matter. And when we have them met, we are much nicer to be around. The really cool thing, too, is that in recent years, the brain science is now here to back all of this up. We're realizing that the reptilian part of the brain is all about keeping us safe and making us happy. Its job is to scan our environment and look for danger to keep us alive. So what's really neat is that when you focus on defining your needs and getting them met in healthy ways, your brain calms down. That's why gratitude works, because you're telling the amygdala, go back to bed, dude, we're good. I have a pillow, I have a bed, I have a safe house to sleep in tonight. I'm very grateful. So it's not just a spiritual practice, it's a brain science practice, and it's really important that we work on things to mitigate the moments that there is a real crisis and we don't feel safe and we do need to take care of stuff. Susan Jeffers, in her old book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and I will put a link to that in the show notes, is an amazing book. It's a wonderful book to read if you haven't already. And her basic synopsis was that when you think about, oh my God, what if, finish it with, I'll handle it. I may not know how I'm going to handle it specifically, but I'll handle it. Those 3 words and a period. I've had clients write on their hand every day for weeks just to remind themselves, it's okay, I'll handle it, I'll handle it. And her point was, look back in the past when crap happened, you stepped up. You did what needed to be done, maybe not perfectly, but you handled it, didn't you? And so all your brain needs to know is, it's good, we're good. I'll take care of it, I'll handle it, and I'll figure that out later. So again, it can get out of that fight or flight response. Meditation is a really good way to calm down the body. Guided meditations are great. Focusing on calming and relaxing your body is really important. That can help you feel safe and grounded. Deep breathing, we know, calms down the parasympathetic nervous system. Very important. It's also important to keep us healthy, right? I mean, to keep us from disease. Doing this stuff throughout the day, they're starting to realize makes a big difference. Like our brain chemistry actually changes after doing meditation and yoga and qigong and all that stuff. So when you think about getting needs met, I want you to kind of take the focus. First, we're going to look this month on, were my needs met growing up? Why or why not? Why that matters. And then second, turning within and saying, okay, perhaps they weren't. Perhaps I'm in a relationship right now where my needs are not getting met. Maybe I'm at a job where I don't feel very respected and I'm not being compensated well. Maybe I don't feel safe in a group that I belong to. But it's about taking responsibility for getting those needs met. And that's not an easy process. And that's why after we talk about needs on this podcast, we're going to start talking about boundaries, because they do go hand in hand. What's neat is when you start addressing this issue, you're going to feel so much more grounded, because the self will trust the self when the self takes needs very seriously. As you begin to own more and more of your needs and getting them met, you're also going to feel a lot more confident and grounded. You're going to feel like you make sense. You're going to trust yourself more. You're also going to be more lovingly attuned to what other people need. And you won't make it about you and you doing for them per se, but you'll just have more natural empathy. Again, it's really, really difficult for us to really honor in the other what we have not yet honored within ourselves. It's an inside-out job when it comes to needs. And so that's why I want you to focus, yes, on growing up and maybe who didn't meet your needs, because as a kid, it wasn't your job to make sure that your needs were met. That belong to grown-ups. But as a grown-up now, it is your job to take responsibility for honoring your own needs and getting them met. A really cool exercise to kind of do as you go through your day is, again, after you've been reading more and more about needs this week, I just want you to become aware of different moments. Just take a moment and stop and say, okay, how am I doing? And what do I need? Just notice, God, does my head hurt? Am I tired? Do I need a nap? Do I need a bath? Do I need a break? Am I bored? Am I hungry? Am I lethargic? Where am I? Am I stressed? What do I need? And don't flip out if the answers don't come right away. This is a painstaking process. It takes a while to re-own what we've disowned. And so be patient with yourself. And I might encourage you just to make it into a fun internal experiment, right? And just kind of notice why that makes sense. I've been working for 6 hours. I probably need a break. Or, wow, I haven't worked out yet this week. Or I haven't talked to anybody all day. Been busy. And so I want you to kind of label the need first and why that makes sense that you would need it. The helpful thing is objectify it for a moment. Take yourself out. Put someone worthy in your place. And what would they need? Why? Because often there's that what's called negative grandiosity where we'll see that other people deserve what they need, but we may be a little tougher on ourselves. So sometimes that helps. So just going throughout your day and just kind of noticing maybe what you need. And see if you can get that met. Now, I know you're going to run into situations where you can't immediately fix the situation, and that's okay. Because the rest of the month, we're going to be talking more about that. So I want to thank you for joining me today and getting into this vulnerable topic that can make some of us feel pretty uncomfortable. Don't feel bad about where you are. Feel proud that you are meeting a personal growth need by tuning in. I'm glad you're joining us on this journey to owning yourself. Be so proud of yourself today. By listening, learning, and taking steps, you will change. You will begin to feel more empowered. So, pay it forward, keep owning you, and see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now so you can really own it later.